What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Marshall Time Show, episode 49. Bro, the NBA season, we know the preseason is already wrapped up, but Tuesday is when it all gets started. We got the real game starting, so I'm excited. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to continue on our division preview. We got one last division to talk about, the Southeast Division, so we'll go over that. But for starters, we got to talk about the preseason, the things that have stood out to us, whether it's teams or players. We got a few names that I know have stood out so far. But for you, what are some things that have stood out to you just watching some of the preseason games, even some of the highlights that we always see on social media, on the timeline? What are some things that you're looking forward to seeing if these things continue? Because we know the preseason is different from the regular season. We've seen so many summer league superstars, preseason stars come regular season when the games really matter. It doesn't really translate. So what are some players, some teams that maybe what you've seen so far may have intrigued you, and hopefully you can see what happens in the regular season?
Well, first off, I want to say the rookie class, man, for a class that had a lot of criticism before they were drafted, even when they were drafted throughout the summer, a class that wasn't really highly touted. A lot of people slept on them. But me and you said like it's going to be some hidden gems in this draft, and it may not be the high key with Victor Wembanyama, Ja Morant type players, but it's going to be some good players in this draft, and it's been a lot of them actually been balling. Like Ryan Dunn for the Suns, late round pick, was balling. Reed Shepard looks good. Don Connect had 30 the other night, 20 in the fourth, right? Even Zach Ricochet looked good, right? Alex Sarr had a game where he looked good. Even Brian, I think Bronny was hooping last night too. That's
Yeah, about I think he had
but
17.
yeah, but so it's
Yeah.
just like a lot of these rookies, they're playing good, in the preseason. And also, some of the older players too. Like I'm watching Zach Levine get out there. I know we got our whole thing with the Bulls, but he looked good, and in that first game they played. Um, it's just I feel like a lot of guys are just out there ready to ball. Dante looked good with the Timberwolves. Ant looked like he picked up right where he left off. So it's definitely I think the energy around a preseason, like I don't remember a preseason being this like entertaining in a while. And now since I remember, because like I said, the rookies are balling. Some of the stars that we have, some of the vets that we have, and shout out to Lonzo too for working his way back onto the court. He looked impressive in his debut, after being out for so long. So that's just some of the things that caught my eye.
Yeah, you mentioned the rookie class, and this is something that we talked about leading up to the draft. I didn't like the tone of just the commentary when it came to this year's rookie class, right? Because you never really know, right? And how many times do we see GMs and scouts get it wrong, even when it's quote unquote a strong class? Like, what is a strong class? A strong class is pretty much when it's easy for you to say, okay, Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. That's pretty much means, okay, top three picks, top four, top five picks. You can pretty much predict how that's going to go, right? But this past year, we got to find out, okay, do you really know what you're doing? Do you really know what you're looking at? Do you really watch college ball? Do you really scout? Do you really know what you're doing? Do you have a plan on how to develop these young guys, right? And so I think too many times people just want to be fed the easy prospects. Anybody can see Vic, Wimby was going to be that guy, right? Chet Holmgren and Paula, but the reality is, even in a quote unquote strong draft class, most lottery picks aren't going to be franchise guys anyway. And we can go over it year by year, the top lottery picks every year. 9 times out of 10, you'll be lucky to get 3 franchise players from that class, right? And so this year's class, if you're getting guys who are going to be secondary options on playoff championship teams, to me, you can't knock that, right? I look at a guy like Dalton Connect, who was a guy that I really enjoyed watching at Tennessee. He was a guy I wanted the Sixers to get. And I know the Jared McCain, Dalton Connect thing is going to be it's going to be a thing this year. I don't think it should be. You got to be fair to both guys, but with his size, his ability to shoot and score and dominate at the SEC level, but because he's a little older, we can't trust that. Well, the teams that are saying he's a little too old, these are the same teams picking guys who are 18 and 19. By year 3, they're out the league or they're G League veterans. You have no idea what you're looking at. You have no idea how to develop these guys. So to me, you're just full of it. right? Don Connect is what, 22? How old Don Connect? Let me look it up right now.
23 at most.
Um,
Probably
yeah,
22.
he's 20. He's 23. Like, you're drafting a 19-year-old off of potential, and what we've seen from most of these teams, they have no idea how to develop young players. They don't have a structure. They don't know how to put them in the right position to be successful, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. We don't have to call these franchises out who are in the lottery every single year. The Lakers got lucky because they passed up on Jaime Jaquez to draft Jalen Hood-Schifino a couple years ago, right? So they got lucky this year that Dalton Connect slid down. But Ryan Dunn for the Suns, defense was his game in college, but he's shown off. He could probably be a really lethal threat offensively with the jump shot that he's shown. We'll see if it can continue for the Suns, but that could be a game changer for the Suns. Also, shout out to Moses Moody for the Warriors. I want to see how that translates to the regular season. Is there time for Moses Moody? Because for the Warriors, they got to figure out, look, are you still trying to win with the Steph Curry and Draymond Green? But you got to find the pieces that can, I guess, go along with that. Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, these are big years for these guys. And Moses Moody had an impressive preseason. I want to see how he translates to the regular season. Shout out to Kai Jones, too, former Hornets player. He was with the Sixers for a little bit, too. I think he's found a home with the Clippers. That might be a fun story to follow as well. Got to talk about Zach Edey, the big fella in Memphis. He's I wasn't real big on him as far as an NBA prospect, as far as being like a bona fide contributor. But on draft night when he went to Memphis, I sat back and thought about it. Look, this is a team that's set with a John Morant, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson, a G.G. Jackson. Like, they have solid role players. All they needed was extra size and strength down low. Zach Edey, there's no better prospect in the draft when it comes to size, right? And so he's showing that ability to be a presence out there, touch around the basket, showed a little drop step. That hook shot seems to be working. And so I'm interested to see how that translates to the regular season, especially with Memphis, how they play up and down the court. How will they integrate Edey into that lineup? And so we'll see a lot of storylines to follow come regular season. I love Dante and Julius in Minnesota too. I just love the energy that Dante's bringing too. The more I think about it, the more I watch it, I'm intrigued by what Minnesota might do this year. I like them even more. I like them more so than I have in the past. And I just think that toughness, that energy that they're bringing to the table with Dante and Julius, I think that's going to be a game changer. And also Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon, they're going to develop too. So, and Josh Minot, have you seen him this preseason?
Yeah.
From Memphis, Minnesota might be a little deep squad this year. So I'm excited to see how that develops throughout the season. All right, let's finish up our division by division preview. We finish out with the Southeast Division, as is the case. As always, we go by order of finish from the previous year. So Orlando, the Magic, they finished first last year. Their additions, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Corey Joseph, and they drafted Tristan Da Silva. They lost Markelle Fultz, who's still a free agent. He should be on the roster. I don't know what's up with that. And Joe Ingles. So your roster, you're looking at Jalen Suggs, KCP, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr., Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Wagner, Corey Joseph, and Tristan Da Silva. This is pretty much the Magic's division to win. Is that fair to say? They're that young team that they're that young team. I wouldn't doubt the Heat, but it feels like I see why people are excited about the Magic. I'm not ready to go crazy with it just yet. They still got some steps to take. I still got to see some things. I want to see some things. Is Wagner that true number two on a perennial playoff or championship contender? I want to see him elevate that next step. And that backcourt of Suggs and KCP defensively is going to be legit, but shooting wise, generating offense from the perimeter, I still have some questions. But this is a young team that's growing, and I'm not ready to go too crazy yet. I don't think they're a top three team, top four team in the Eastern Conference right now.
I think this team falls mainly on two players, and to me, it's going to be the development of Paolo. he's had a great start to his career, right? Like nobody can doubt that. But it's time for him to take the next step as a jump shooter, which he already has begun, and it's time for him to take the next step as a playmaker, right? Which he has capability of doing. But the way this team is structured, right? They have pieces that you need. They have rebounding. They have size for sure. They have defenders, right? Now our best player has to be able to get these guys involved and get them great open looks like Paolo. We know he can get it in the post. He can play on the perimeter. He can slash. He can score at all three levels. Now it's time for him to become a better playmaker. I want to see him get KCP involved because we've seen how KCP looked on the Lakers when he can spot up. We've seen him on the Nuggets when he can spot up. Jalen Suggs has worked on his three ball, right? So they need to focus on developing him as a playmaker. And also, I think KCP has to be huge for them too because he's going to take some of that pressure off of Jalen Suggs to guard and be the point guard and be able to create offense and make shots. So if KCP can still give them a few years of that great 3-and-D play that he's given to other teams in the league, this is definitely a great team though. They in the regular season too. Like they going really beat down on some teams. Even some teams people may think they might not beat. You come into Orlando on sleeping, they might get them out of there because that they're a team. And I like their bench too. Like they have pieces on the bench. It's not just a starting five. You know what I mean? They still got Jonathan Isaac, right? Still got Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, Gary Harris, even Mo Wagner be playing. He has some games during the regular season too, and in the playoffs. So this is definitely a deep team. I just think it really falls on the development of Paolo. Is he going to ascend to that next step, or is he going to stay where he's kind of been at? But yeah, that's my
Yeah, yeah, talented team, and you know nothing's promised when it comes to a team's window. You know, we can talk about teams on the rise every year, and they never seem to take that next step for multiple reasons, right? And so, this is a crucial time when it comes to this franchise because they obviously Paulo and Franz Wagner, those are the two guys that they've identified. These are the two guys that we need to rely on and bank on, right? And so when you look at the championship contenders, you look at the top 10 players in the league, all the championship contenders in NBA, they have a player in that top 10, top 15 list, right? Like, forget who you think is the order, but I'm talking SGA, Luka, Giannis, Joel, Tatum, right? Like, the reality is, can we put Paulo Banchero amongst that group right now? That's the question. And that will determine for me, if he's your number one guy, that will determine how far this Orlando team goes. Can we put him up there with Ant-Man? Because we've seen what Ant-Man has done for Minnesota, right? Like playoff ball, going crazy. We've seen what SGA did last year. We know what Luka does. Giannis is a champion. Tatum's a champion. Jaylen Brown's a champion. Like Finals MVP. Joel Embiid, he just can't stay healthy, but we know when he's healthy, yeah. Um, so do we see Banchero as one day being a top 10 guy in the league? That's the question. Do you think he can elevate into that by this time next year? Are we talking Paolo as a top 10 player?
Yeah, I think he has the potential to be because he
But do
has
you
the size.
but do you think we talking him as a top 10 player this time
He
next
might
year?
not be top. He probably won't be.
Top 15 even.
I could say he might crack. He could crack top 15. I think the game is there. We just have to see. I mean, it's only going to be his third year,
Yeah.
so we'll see. We'll see.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's hard, but that thing. The thing about that fluctuate every year with injuries. Some
Yeah.
guys flat out decline. Like Kawhi, he's not even going to be playing this year. We about to take him out of there, right? Certain guys just decline. Certain guys get hurt, and then some guys just really hit that next step. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, the game is there, but we'll see. That's really the key for him, though, because if he can, then they're dangerous.
Yeah, it's and look, the Eastern Conference, you got the Celtics, Sixers, and Knicks. That's the top three, right? Then you have Indiana, We know what that roster is. They have the experience. You have Milwaukee with Giannis and Dame. We'll see what they're about. The Cavs, like this is like I said, the next 2 years I think are going to be crucial for Orlando to see how things are going to go for them. Next up, can never count them out. The Miami Heat. They added Kel'el Ware, another rookie who has been doing his thing. Alec Burks, Josh Christopher, Pell Larson, who they drafted, Nasir Little. They lost Caleb Martin and DeLon Wright. So the roster looking like Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Nikolai Jovic, Bam Adebayo, Alec Burks, Josh Richardson, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kel'el Ware, Duncan Robinson, Kevin Love, Pelle Larson, Haywood Highsmith, Thomas Bryant, and Nasir Little. How you feel about Miami and their roster and what they can do in the Eastern Conference? Can they do it again? Make another run at it? Surprisingly,
I don't think they will. Like you said, never count them out. But the problem with the Heat is, I feel like they don't take the regular season serious enough,
hmm.
and now they're hitting that point where they're going to run into the top dogs in those first three, in those like the first round, right? So they'll end up playing a Boston, they're playing in New York, right? They even play Milwaukee, may even play a Sixers, right? And it's going to be tough. Even if they were to win those matchups, it's going to beat down on them mentally, physically. And Jimmy Butler's only getting older, right? He's starting to have some injury issues here and there, right? Jimmy Butler's only getting older. Um, Bam, I like the way he looked with the Olympic team, right? Starting to hit jumpers, but is he going to do that in the course of a regular season and a postseason? Tyler Hero, good scorer, but pretty one dimensional at this point in his career, and his averages have stayed stagnant. Like he's been averaging like 20 points a game for 3 straight years, and that's cool. But they need that other spark. And I know they got Terry Rozier, but he's not the most consistent player, right? Thing about the Heat is though they're first of all they're coached by one of the best coaches, if not the best. Two, we have to count for the fact that Pat really knows how to get dogs on the team, right? And those are priceless. So they're always going to be in the mix. But just as far as being a contender, it's just like I feel like their window is kind of done, like if you ask me. But um we'll see how it goes. Like I said, maybe if they take the regular season more serious and they position themselves in a better way, then maybe. But I don't really have a lot of faith in them making a run to the finals again.
yeah. I mean, I like the pieces they have on the roster. Like I love Jaime Jaquez and what he did last year as a rookie. Kel'el Ware seems to be a promising big. We know Jimmy. We know playoff Jimmy is a real thing. Bam Adebayo. I think they're hoping that Jovic takes that next step because he's a guy who I think we've heard so much potential with him and what he brings with his size and skill set. Well, okay, eventually we got to see it. And I'm not crazy about a backcourt of Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero defensively. Offensively, we know Tyler Hero can go off at any moment. Terry Rozier, he's a proven scorer in this league for years now. But defensively, what they're going to have to come up against some of these teams in the Eastern Conference that can really score in these backcourts, these talented guards, I think that's what's going to really be the downside for Miami this year. They're going to play hard. You don't want to play. Look, it's been this way for forever now. You don't want to play Miami in the first round. If you're Philly, if you're Boston, it's like, yo, let's just that ain't the way, right? But I just think it's gonna be the same thing again this year. It's gonna be a tough team to play. They're gonna be competitive. They're never gonna just look trash, right? They're well coached. They're gonna be well conditioned. They're gonna play hard. They're gonna be locked in. And you don't want to play this team in the playoffs, right? But once again, I just think that backcourt of Rozier and Hero defensively, I have a hard time having a lot of faith in that. Um, and so yeah, but Miami is no doubt a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. This is where it starts to get a little dark for this division. We go with the Hawks. Obviously, their top pick, number one pick in the draft, Zachary Risase. They also added Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., Cody Zeller, and David Roddy. They lost DeJounte Murray, who's now in New Orleans, and Sadiq Bey. So your roster, Trae Young, Bogdanovich, Zachary Risase, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella, Kobe Buffkin, Dyson Daniels, DeAndre Hunter, Larry Nance Jr., Onyeke Okongwu, Garrison Matthews, and David Roddy. Those are your 2024-25 Hawks.
Uh, I don't know.
It's Trey. Look, Trey Young is going to be a lot of fantasy draft. Trey Young is going to get his numbers, his points, and his assists because he has a bunch of wings that can go. Reese Shea, Jalen Johnson. But this year, Trey Young getting buckets, and you want to see continued growth from Jalen Johnson and see what Reese Shea can do as a complementary piece as well. But outside of that, I don't see any other long-term pieces on this roster. Maybe a Dyson Daniels defensively, but I think DeAndre Hunter, I think the Hawks know what he is at this point. But yeah, get ready for another lottery situation in Atlanta.
Yeah, just go get them picks, man. Try to get one of these great talents in the draft. Thing is, like Trey Young's such a good player that he'll keep them in some of these regular season games, and they'll sneak out and win some of these games. But it's just at this point, it's not worth it. Like I don't even want to see them in a play-in, and they'll probably end up making a play-in. Like that's the type team they'll be.
Chicago and Atlanta.
Yeah, you know what I mean. ESPN Friday night NBA
Yeah,
TV.
NBA TV Classic.
I don't want to see that, but I think it is time for them to say, you know what, maybe Trey has to move. They keep getting into this no lands man, and I like Trey as a player. Of course he has his liability as a defender, but what he can do to create offense is great. And that's why it would be awesome for them to get a top pick, to get somebody like a Cooper Flag, anchor their defense and help out on that side of the ball. But reality is they're going to be good enough to not get like a top 3 pick, but they're not. They're in no man's land. They're not going to be contenders, right? So yeah, they're in a worse spot for a team to be, if you ask me. But hey, the fans, at least you go see Trey Young play in Atlanta. That's all I gotta say for the Hawks.
Listen, I remember we had a conversation on one of our shows, and I said, "Look, you got to think about Trey and Trey Young one of these days, because at a certain point, what are you doing, right?" And the reality is, how many 6'3" and under guards are going to lead a team to a championship as your number one? Isaiah Thomas, Steph Curry. AI got close, but that team just wasn't good enough. Jalen Brunson, we'll see what happens with that, what they do. But it's just tough to have a small guard who is so, like, we know what he brings to the table offensively, but man, it's tough now. Like, it's really going to be tough to try to build a situation in Atlanta around a Trey Young. The DeJounte Murray experiment, we knew that wasn't going to work because both need the ball to be impactful, right? So you sort of have to build your roster to where, okay, we have Trey, a bunch of athletic wings, and maybe some good shooters because he needs the ball to be effective. Is that a recipe to win a championship in the NBA? No. It's just not. You need guys who can actually, multiple guys who have the ability and are okay with being, sometimes saying, okay, I don't need the ball here, but I can find other ways to get this team going, like a Boston Celtics situation, right? You see a Tatum, you see a Jaylen Brown, a Derek White. Like, they don't need the ball all the time to be impactful, right? And so with the Atlanta Hawks, they're in a tough spot. And so they may have to figure out, look, it's going to come down to that conversation eventually, right? I don't think Trey Young spends his entire career in Atlanta, whether that's by trade or he just decides to leave as a free agent. That's just the reality right now. It's just, but do you waste your time and delay the inevitable, or do you figure it out within the next year, the next 2 years? But they got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Now we go. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Then we go to the Hornets. They added. I'm gonna get this young man's name right because he's actually been showing, another rookie who's been playing pretty solid in the preseason. Tijane Salyun. I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna make sure I got it right. They also drafted KJ Simpson. They got Josh Green, Harry Giles, and Taj Gibson. Yes, he is still in the NBA. And they also lost Davis Bertans. So you have a roster of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Josh Green, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams. Shout out to Trey Mann too. I think he could be a really good six-man for the Hornets. Cody Martin, Vasile Micic, Grant Williams, Nick Richards, Seth Curry, Sal Yoon, and Nick Smith Jr. How you feeling about the Hornets this year?
Man, it's just time for them to like. It's time for Lamelo. It's Lamelo time. That's what we need
Mhm.
to see. We seen him. He is a good player. We seen it, but I need to see all that flashy, all the potential. I need to see it actually translate to winning, right? And they've made some moves to kind of make their roster a little better. Still, they're still not world beaters or anything, but they've made their roster a little better, right? It'll be fun to watch. They got their announcers going crazy. They got talent. They
Yeah.
got athletic guys, talented guys on the roster. But for me this year, it's like even from a organization standpoint, what is Lamelo for us? Same question we had with Cade in Detroit, right? Is he really that guy? Like, is he really the number one, or is he just a super talented player, but he's not a number one? They need to figure it out. And also, in the midst of that, they need to see, all right, who are we going to draft if we do get, these top picks? We'll see how their rookie that they drafted is this year. Um, but this is a deeper draft class coming up, so they need to really figure some things out. And I love Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's game is nice, right? So we got to see how he develops too. But other than that, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to really make a run at anything. Not even a plan, probably. Not in my eyes, but we'll see.
Exciting team to watch. Like if we're talking league pass and you want to, stream in and just on a random Tuesday, Wednesday night, you just want to watch a random team, random game to see what's popping off. The Hornets are playing. If LaMelo Ball's there, Brandon Miller's there, it won't hurt you to check out a quarter or so. You know what I mean? Because you might see LaMelo go off for 40, Brandon Miller go off for 40. But get ready to learn the 2025 Tankathon and prospects. Here's a thought. I think Brandon Miller can be their best player, can be the number one guy. I think we'll see this year because we love what LaMelo Ball brings to the table as a creator, as a scorer. I think this year we'll see if Brandon Miller can elevate himself to be okay. The Hornets can recognize him as okay. This is the guy that we're banking on as as a a guy with his size at the wing, the ability to score from deep, to drive. Obviously, he has to add other dimensions to his game, creating for others, making others better. But that's the story for me between Ball and Miller. I want to see Miller elevate into that number one role because LaMelo as a secondary option, it's not bad. So if you're looking at a duo of Miller and Ball, maybe you get a solid lottery pick next year. You have your young trio that you can build around now. And so the future isn't as bleak in Charlotte as it is in Atlanta. I'll say that. I can sort of see they have a coach in Charles Lee, a longtime assistant, was an assistant for the Celtics, won a championship. He's well respected. He's a young coach, bringing new energy. And so I can sort of see where Charlotte can be in the next few years. So I got my eye on Charlotte. I do. It gets really dark now. Um, we go to the Wizards.
I forgot they were in that division.
They forgot. They forgot to. Alex Sarr was their top pick. They had a solid first round pick. They had 3 first rounders: Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington. Added Malcolm Brogdon, Sadiq Bey, Jonas Valanciunas, which is so random. They lost Denny Advia, Tyus Jones, and Landry Shamet. So your roster, the guy himself, Jordan Poole, Bilal Koulibaly, who I really like, Kyle Kuzma, Alex Sarr, Jonas Valanciunas, Malcolm Brogdon, Corey Kispert, Rashawn Holmes, Marvin Bagley. Yeah, that's like the main guys that you. I look. I don't have much to say. Developmental year for Sarr, for George, for Carrington, for Koulibaly. The roster is what it is. This isn't a winning team. This might be one of the worst. This could be between them and Portland. They'll be competing for the worst record in the NBA. Them and Portland, I can honestly say. They'll be one of the worst teams in the NBA. And that's not even trying to be, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Um, Last year was a joke. Jordan Poole and Kuzma as your top two guys isn't a winning formula. I'm sorry. They just need to find a franchise player. That's just the reality of it. It's as simple as that, right? Like you got to get lucky one of these years and get a franchise guy. Is Alex Sarr that guy? I don't know. He could be a great defensive player and develop his offensive game and be a great secondary piece. But as a number one guy, I'm not sure yet. They have to find a franchise player. 2025, maybe you'll find that guy. But it's as simple as that. They got to find a franchise player. They actually have nice pieces who I think with Sarr, with George, Carrington, Koulibaly. Like they have guys who, if you have a number one guy already there, those are some good solid pieces. But the key is for those four names that I just mentioned to develop those guys. But Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma going forward, if I'm management, I'm trying to figure out, okay, Kyle Kuzma as a trade piece, Jordan Poole as a trade piece. We got to figure it out because those aren't two guys that I think over the next few years I want to have on my roster. It just doesn't make sense. It does not.
Yeah, that team is just nasty work. I saw a stat that said they've been getting blown up by like 22 points per game in the preseason. So when this regular season comes, and like them having Kuzma and Jordan Poole, guys like that on their team, to me, it just hurts the growth of the players they're trying to develop because we know they're just trying to go get buckets. They don't really care about winning, especially Poole. Like both of them. Matter of fact, both of them already won a ring. It's time to get bread for them. You know what I mean? They don't care. So
Yeah.
I'm not like I wouldn't even want them on the team, man. Let me get some other guys that's like I want. Let's give Koulibaly the ball, see what he can do with it at least. Like I just don't. I'm not seeing the vision over there. It's like when they got Poole, it was like, all right, let's see if he can, kind of revive his career. But I think we see what's going on. Like, it's over with, bro.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of young players, so it's going to be growing pains. There's going to be moments where it's like, yeah, this is some ugly basketball. It's a developmental year for a few of those young guys, and for Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. Like I said, like I don't see them being a part of a winning future in DC. I just don't. I have a hard time seeing that. They can't be your top two guys.
At all.
They just can't, especially in the Eastern Conference and how these teams are building. They're even compared to Detroit. Detroit at least has, you have a Cade Cunningham. You got a Jaden Ivey, a Jalen Dorrance. Like at least you have a couple. Okay, I see where this is going, but Poole and Kuzma, solid. Like these are really solid role players, but is Kyle Kuzma even a number two on a championship team?
No, he wasn't.
Understand who the number two was on the Celtics on any given night. Understand who the number two is for OKC,
even Dallas,
for Denver, for like teams that didn't even make for like
Bucks
in Philly, New York, Miami, Orlando,
the
Pacers.
Like the gap for them is just crazy to me. Like
they have the worst roster in the Eastern Conference,
definitely
for sure. It's them and Portland are like competing.
Yeah,
for like, yeah, they're trying to plant their flag. They're trying to look at Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. Like for them, it doesn't even matter what position you need to find the best talent that's on the board. That's what it's easy. Your draft for the next 2-3 years, position doesn't matter. I don't care how old they are. Whoever the best talent is, you get them in there because the talent here is lacking. It's nasty in DC. So, yeah, I see 2 playoff teams in this division, Orlando, Miami. Maybe Atlanta sneaks into a play-in, which they probably will because of Trae Young. It'll be like a Hawks Raptors situation, something that I feel like we've seen like a Chicago, Toronto, Atlanta play-in, some variation of that game for the last 4 years. I feel like so. Charlotte will be exciting to watch at times, but the Wizards, nah. I want to see how Bilal Koulibaly develops, Alex Sarr, George, Carrington, obviously those young guys, but outside of that, nah. I can't do it. Any closing thoughts? NFL thoughts? Before we wrap up, what you thinking about them Birds? The Cowboys are cooked. I still think the Jets are cooked. Uh,
I mean, well, first of all, shout out to Devontae Adams for pulling off the heist or whatever you want to call it. He wasn't that hurt, man. If he was hurt, he wasn't that hurt. Now I mean, he's magically playing. But that's gonna be interesting to see him link back up with A Rod. They gotta win though in Pittsburgh. If they don't, it's gonna get a little weird. Well, they're playing in New York, I think. But either way, they have to win.
yeah,
Um, Other than that, we'll see what happens. It's gonna be some interesting games tomorrow. Lions versus Vikings. That's a big game. Um, Saquon returning to the Giants, Texans, and Packers. We're at that point of the season now where it's like, okay, some teams have to start separating themselves because I feel like a lot of the teams that we felt like would be at the top, they're still struggling, still inconsistent. It's not really a clear cut number one on both sides. I mean, unless you like the Lions, they look like the best, but you know they can always be beat. Same with the Chiefs. They look well. They're undefeated still, I believe, but
yeah,
they're they have injury problems, right? But it is Mahomes. But their style of play is a little different this year. I want to see what happens when they play a team like the Ravens that kind of, they want them to kind of play like that. And the Ravens they look like a force, but they can be beaten too, like we've seen it before. So it's going to be interesting. It's still a long football season though, but WNBA Finals is lit. Shout out to them. They ball.
yeah. Game.
Shout out crazy.
They got the game 5 on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going. So
That's going to be crazy.
it's going. World Series is rocking. It's a lot going on in sports. But opening night, we'll be here next week to discuss the first week. So yeah,
Man, the NFL is weird this year. I'm looking at like the NFC standings: the Vikings, Lions, Falcons, Commanders, Bucks, Packers, Bears. Like, it's a weird season, and the parity is on any given Sunday. You really can't. There aren't many safe like short bets in the NFL right now, right?
uh,
Like even in like if you play fantasy, you can sense like, man, you just don't know. Even the Chiefs and Mahomes aren't having the type of year that they're undefeated though, and so I will at this point I still trust the Chiefs. And I still trust Mahomes and Andy Reid in the playoff situation, like until proven otherwise, right? I like Baltimore with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Houston is going to be good, but in the NFC, I mean, if it's man. Sam Darnold in the playoffs.
they talking about he might get $50 million on his next contract.
Well, good luck to whoever does that, and salute to Darnold for getting that. Kirk Cousins come playoff time. You know how I feel about that. Jaden Daniels is still a rookie at the end of the day, right? And so he's never had a playoff experience. He hasn't been in that environment. It's different. How does he handle that? Same with Chicago. Chicago's 4-2. Caleb Williams, he's still a rookie. And then you have the Eagles at 3-2 and the 49ers at 3-3. It's going to be interesting. I think the NFC is going to be interesting. It's going to be unpredictable come playoff time. I think the Cowboys are done. I think it's a joke that they came into the season with Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott as your running backs, and you said, okay, this is it. This is going to get it done. So don't be surprised. All you have is CeeDee Lamb in that wideout role, number one. Dak Prescott has proven time and time again that he cannot elevate a team. Everything has to be perfect. The O-line, the running game, and the wideouts. If things aren't ideal for him, he's not going to elevate a team. How many times do we got to say this? So the fact that they're struggling shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. You can use injuries as an excuse, but the roster is still a weak roster. Bottom line. Who else? I'm just scanning the landscape. The 49ers. What's up with that?
A lot of injuries. They've been able to stay afloat with some of these games, but
they play the Chiefs. They play the Chiefs Sunday.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
I'm still rocking with the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl. I know that. The Chiefs and Ravens, But I got my eye on the Texans, though. If they can get Nico Collins back, he's hurt. That might play a factor. But the Texans are, man, they're
They
dangerous.
nice.
They dangerous. I'm not going to lie. Joe Mixon at running back, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, defensively, solid. D'Amico Ryans, a coach on, a great, great young coach. So I'm looking at Houston, Baltimore, Kansas City as the teams that, like, okay, I see what you got going on. But the NFC, the Vikings are 5-0, but I still, every week I'm just like, how? It's the coach, right? Like, it's the head coach.
Right.
Like, he's a great offensive mind, right? You have a Justin Jefferson, but are they repeating their same mistakes that they did with Kirk Cousins? Like, I don't think Sam Darnold is a quarterback to where when things aren't going so great, can he take it to another level and elevate? And I don't think Sam Darnold is that quarterback. I just don't. But we'll see. But yeah, opening week coming up, so we got a lot to talk about in the midst of the NFL season and everything else going on. We got college ball starting back up too. I'm excited about the men's and women's game. We got a lot this year. Honestly, I know we talked a lot about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese last year. On the men's side of things, there wasn't a lot of hype, but on both sides, the women's and men's game, I mean, there was so much hype for the Rutgers scrimmage against St. John's with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, right? You got Cooper Flagg. On the women's side, Paige Beckers and UConn. I know, Paige wants to go out on top, but I'm excited about Juju Watkins, like Juju and USC. Like, it's so on both sides of the coin this year. I think it's going to be a really fun college season. Obviously, March Madness is going to be amazing as usual, but I think this year there's really going to be an exciting time to watch each and every single week, and not just waiting until March, especially come conference play. That's when it really gets turned up. But I'm excited to see what these young prospects can show. But next week, obviously, we got to recap opening week of the NBA, and maybe there's some major NFL stories that pop up as well. But thank you guys for watching and listening. Don't forget Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share us, post us on social media, share with your group chats, your friends, your fam. And we'll be back next week.
All right, peace out.